prices go up. Your savings lose value. Your salary buys less than it did last year. Inflation, it's the silent tax that nobody voted for, and almost nobody sees coming until it's already eating away at their wealth. But one man has not only survived inflation, he's thrived through it. Through the 1970s stagflation. Through the 2008 financial crisis. Through the post-COVID price surge of 2021 and 2022. That man is Warren Buffett. And over the decades, Buffett has said some of the most clear, practical, and actionable things about inflation that you'll find anywhere. Today, we're going to break down exactly what Buffett believes about inflation, and more importantly, what he says you should do about it. Let's get into it. Before we get to Buffett's strategy, let's make sure we understand the enemy. Inflation is the gradual, or sometimes not so gradual, rise in the prices of goods and services over time. But here's the thing most people miss: inflation doesn't just raise prices. It destroys the purchasing power of money. If you have 10 Indian rupees locked sitting in a savings account earning 3% interest, and inflation is running at 6%, you are losing money in real terms. Every single year. Even though your bank balance looks the same, or even slightly higher. Buffett put it simply at one of his famous Berkshire Hathaway annual meetings. He said that the dollar bill in your wallet is a promise that the government will keep its commitments. But history shows governments have a complicated relationship with that promise. The lesson here is foundational. Holding cash during high inflation is not safe. It is actually one of the riskiest things you can do. And Buffett has been saying this for 50 years. So if cash is dangerous during inflation, what does Buffett actually recommend? His core philosophy is this: own businesses, not money. Buffett has written extensively in his annual shareholder letters that the best protection against inflation is owning a piece of a great business, especially one that has pricing power. What is pricing power? It's a company's ability to raise its prices without losing customers. Think about Coca-Cola. Whether it can cost 20 Indian rupees or 40 Indian rupees or 60 Indian rupees, people are still going to buy it. The brand is so strong, the habit so deep, that consumers absorb the price increase. Compare that to a commodity business, a steel company, for example, or a generic manufacturer. If they raise prices, customers immediately switch to a cheaper competitor. No pricing power. Buffett's investments, Coca-Cola, Apple, American Express, See's Candies, all have one thing in common: they sell something people want so badly that price increases barely affect demand. This is the foundation. Own businesses with pricing power, and inflation becomes someone else's problem, specifically, the problem of the people who hold cash while you hold equity. But here's where Buffett's thinking gets more nuanced, and where most investors miss a critical warning. Not all businesses protect you from inflation equally. In fact, some businesses are hurt by inflation, even if they have pricing power. Buffett calls these capital-intensive businesses, companies that need to constantly reinvest large amounts of money just to maintain their current level of operations. Think about a railroad company, an airline, or a heavy manufacturing business. When inflation rises, the cost of replacing equipment, upgrading infrastructure, and maintaining assets all goes up dramatically. These companies might raise their prices, but so do all their input costs. The net benefit to shareholders is often minimal. Buffett has said clearly, the ideal business for an inflationary environment requires minimal capital reinvestment to maintain or grow its earning power. A software company, a media brand, a consumer products company with a trusted name, these businesses can grow earnings without constantly pouring money back into physical assets. This is why Buffett's portfolio skews toward asset-light businesses with strong brands. It's not an accident. It's an inflation strategy. Here's a piece of Buffett's inflation advice that almost nobody talks about, and it might be the most important thing he's ever said on this topic. At the 2009 Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, Buffett was asked directly, "What's the best investment to make during inflation?" His answer surprised many people. He didn't say gold. He didn't say real estate. He didn't say treasury bonds. He said, invest in yourself. More specifically, he said that whatever talent you have, Your skills, your knowledge, your professional value cannot be inflated away. Nobody can print more Warren Buffetts. Nobody can print more great surgeons, great engineers, great communicators, great salespeople. If you are the best at what you do, your earning power rises with, or even exceeds, inflation. Because the demand for excellent people never goes down. Buffett has said this consistently throughout his career: skills compound just like money does. And unlike a savings account, your skills can never be debased by a central bank printing more currency. This is advice that applies to everyone, whether you have 5,000 Indian rupees to invest or 5 Indian rupees crores. Many people assume Warren Buffett loves real estate as an inflation hedge. The reality is more nuanced. Buffett does acknowledge that good real estate, particularly residential property in supply-constrained markets, can be an effective inflation hedge. Real assets tend to hold value as the purchasing power of currency declines. In fact, Buffett has personally said that if he could find a practical way to do it, he would buy a large number of single-family homes as rentals, because the math works over long periods of time. But here's his caution: real estate is not a universal inflation hedge. Bad real estate, overpriced properties in declining areas, highly leveraged deals with floating interest rates, can destroy wealth just as easily as inflation can. Buffett's broader lesson here is that the type of asset matters enormously. A great business is still his first choice. Real estate ranks as a secondary hedge, useful, but requiring expertise to execute well. If there's one thing Buffett is famous for saying about inflation hedges, it's his rejection of gold. Most people think of gold as the classic protection against inflation. But Buffett famously disagrees, and his reasoning is worth understanding. Buffett's argument is simple: gold produces nothing. It just sits there. A bar of gold today will still be a bar of gold in 100 years. It pays no dividends, generates no earnings, builds no products, hires no employees. He has used this analogy: if you took all the gold in the world and melted it into a cube, it would be worth trillions of dollars. But that same amount of money invested into productive businesses would generate enormous ongoing wealth that compounds year after year. Buffett's view is that gold's price rise during inflation is simply a reflection of declining confidence in currency, not a genuine creation of value. That said, many investors use gold as a hedge, and there are legitimate arguments for a small allocation. But Buffett's preference is clear and consistent: productive assets over unproductive ones, every time. Alright. Let's bring this all together into something you can actually act on. Based on everything Buffett has said and done over 50 years, here is the practical framework for protecting your money during inflation. 1. Reduce cash drag. Don't let large amounts of money sit in low-interest savings accounts during high inflation periods. Your money should be working. 2. Buy businesses with pricing power. Look for companies that sell something people must have or deeply want, companies where a price increase doesn't kill demand. Consumer staples, strong brands, essential services. 3. Avoid capital-intensive companies. Be careful with businesses that need to reinvest constantly just to stay still. Their inflation protection is often weaker than it appears. 4. Invest in yourself. Upgrade your skills. Learn something new. Make yourself more valuable. This is genuinely inflation-proof in a way that financial assets are not. 5. Consider real assets carefully. Good quality real estate in the right location can work. But do your homework. Location, leverage, and market dynamics all matter enormously. 6. Don't chase gold reflexively. A small position may make sense for some portfolios. But Buffett's entire career is built on productive assets, not passive ones. 7. Think long-term. Inflation is painful in the short run. But over decades, quality businesses have always outpaced inflation. Patience is itself a strategy. Warren Buffett has navigated every inflationary cycle of the last 70 years. He's watched currencies devalue, interest rates spike, commodity prices explode, and economies stumble. And through all of it, his answer has remained remarkably consistent: own great businesses, invest in yourself, think long-term, and don't let fear drive you into unproductive assets. Inflation is a real threat to your wealth. But it's not unbeatable. The tools Buffett has used are available to any investor willing to think carefully and act patiently. If this video gave you a new way to think about your money, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who's worried about inflation right now. Because understanding this stuff is genuinely rare, and it makes a real difference. I'll see you in the next one.